If you can't change the rules of the game, rewrite the operating system. When you look at the world, what makes you more cynical? Outright lies or truths presented with suspicious convenience. Have you ever felt that you are living in a system where everything called stable is actually just the result of hundreds of layers of historical patches? Like an old piece of software, stealthily updated overnight, and no one remembers when they agreed to it. And if you discover that the entire world you live in, from the currency you use, the news you read, to the language you think in, is the result of social protocols you never chose, what will you do? This isn't a book, it's a system description. And benag isn't here to comfort you. He's here to show you the cracks in the structure you thought was immutable, and then to hand you a key. You can fork the world, but before you start rewriting the future, you must relearn how to read the present. Part 1. Technology. You hold a magic wand in your hand. Not one for fairytale transformations, but a wand crafted from lines of code, from silicon, from electronic currents flowing silently in the dark. This wand can't turn stone into gold, but it can transform a wild idea into a multi-billion-dollar company. It can't grant immortality, but it can extend human lifespan by decades, and sometimes it achieves the unimaginable, turning an unknown individual into a world changer. That is the magic wand of technology. I am not a lover of money. I don't dress lavishly, own sports cars, or beachfront villas. I still wear the same old t-shirt from my graduate school days. For me, money is merely a tool to build things that even money cannot buy. Think of Elon Musk, the richest man on the planet, who didn't build SpaceX for profit. He did it because no one could sell him a trip to Mars. Similarly, a century ago, the world's richest man couldn't own an iPhone because it simply didn't exist. Technology is how we create the unprecedented, and that, truly, is genuine wealth. Yet there's a cruel irony. Society lacks a clear metric for progress. If I had to choose one, I'd pick life expectancy. It's a physical, objective indicator that grew exponentially for centuries, but now it's stagnating, even declining in some places. This shows we are moving backward. If technology is the engine of progress, then the regression in life expectancy is a wake-up call. And then I realized we talk too much about valuation and too little about value. Money is just an outward manifestation of wealth. True value lies in what new things you can create, what cannot be bought. Can you make people live longer, healthier, more knowledgeable lives? Technology shouldn't merely be a means to get rich. It should be a way to change biological, social, and historical destiny. If we had developed self-driving cars a few years earlier, tens of thousands of lives wouldn't be lost each year to traffic accidents. If medical approval processes weren't hindered, millions could live longer. If we focused on extending youth, not just longevity, we could live to 150 while maintaining the physical and intellectual vitality of a 30-year-old. We already possess such technologies. Gene therapy can cure deafness. Artificial eyes can restore sight to the blind. Robotic arms can replace lost limbs. Artificial intelligence can diagnose diseases better than the best doctors. These are no longer science fiction. They are reality, if only we have the courage to apply them. But it's strange that so many people refuse to use technology even when it's clearly better. They don't want to learn how to use it. They fear the new, they worry what if the lever breaks, all while they're straining to lift a boulder with their bare hands. I find that both amusing and dangerous. Don't misunderstand, I love caution. I was once a scientist, but caution doesn't mean stagnation. Fear shouldn't be an excuse to reject progress. And sometimes, the greatest risk is not daring to take any risk at all. You might think value comes from labor. That's partly true, but incomplete. A handcrafted chair made in 10 hours might be more expensive than a mass-produced one that takes only 30 minutes. But if the industrial chair is more comfortable, beautiful, and durable, buyers will choose it. Technology is where true value is created. The light from a light bulb is better than 100 people running around with candles. A refrigerator is better than going to the market every day. Cars are better than horse-drawn carriages. The internet is better than newspapers. This is obvious logic, yet often forgotten. We live in an era where most value is created by software. You don't need factories, you don't need production lines, you just need a computer, the right line of code, and an idea crazy enough to create something millions will use. And that's just the beginning. Look at the physical world. We are on the verge of full robotization. Robotic arms won't just work in factories, they'll become delivery people, chefs, assemblers. One day, printing a chair, a meal, or a building will be as easy as printing a sheet of paper. You won't need to know how to make it, only how to program it. And then, software will be the creator of everything. All value will originate from code, and everyone, from investors to founders, will have to learn to think like an engineer. I call this the first law of technology. Anything that can be done over the internet will be done over the internet. Maybe not today, but it will surely come. When you accept the first law, you'll start to see the world differently. You'll see industries once thought immune to technology gradually being reprogrammed. Journalism, education, finance, healthcare, even law. All are shifting from analog to digital, from outdated systems to open architectures. This isn't just progress, it's a metamorphosis of the entire social structure. Take journalism, for example. Previously, a small group of reporters, editors, and publishers controlled the flow of information. They decided what was printed, what was discarded. Now, with the internet, everyone can be a broadcaster, a publisher. The power once held by a few hundred people is now in the hands of billions. This causes chaos, yes, but it also opens opportunities for truth to be heard from places once silenced. Or look at education. Why should a student in Africa pay thousands of dollars for an outdated curriculum when they can learn for free from top professors worldwide on YouTube, Coursera, or edX? In the digital world, degrees will gradually lose their monopoly. True competence will be measured by what you can do, not where you graduated from. And when you extend the first law to the physical world, you'll see that if a product can be produced cheaper, faster, and smarter through automation, it will inevitably be produced that way. Every industry will have to adapt or be replaced. But technology isn't just about replacement, it's about expansion. Thanks to technology, a skilled doctor in Japan can perform surgery on a patient in Peru via remotely controlled robots. An engineer in Mumbai can design a building for New York without leaving their desk. An anonymous programmer in Nigeria can write code that shakes the London financial market. These examples are no longer fiction, they are happening. And every time technology removes a physical barrier, it opens up new horizons for collaboration, creativity, and progress. However, everything has its price. When you empower billions, you also open the door to billions of errors, fake news, cyberattacks, financial fraud, deepfakes. That's the dark side of the same technology. And the question isn't how to stop it, but how to build a robust enough immune system to withstand it. I believe the solution isn't censorship, but transparency. You can't stop every lie, but you can create systems where truth is verified more easily, more quickly, more immutably. And that's where blockchain comes in. Blockchain isn't just Bitcoin, it's an unchangeable record-keeping mechanism. A global accounting system that no one controls but everyone can verify. If the internet is where you share information, blockchain is where you share truth. A society where every record from academic degrees, birth certificates, contracts, election results exists on a system that cannot be edited, cannot be hidden. This is not merely technical improvement. It's a way to rebuild trust in a world overly accustomed to deception. And not just blockchain. An entire generation of new technologies, from IoT, VR, to AI, are entering daily life at an unprecedented pace. The issue isn't whether this will happen, but how you will react when it does. I'm not urging you to chase every new trend. I'm simply suggesting you ask a simple question. If I don't learn to use technology, who or what might replace me? And if the answer is, I don't know, then perhaps it's time to learn to think like a programmer, not to write code, but to understand. In this new world, code is law, currency, language, and power. One of the earliest lessons I learned working in tech was, don't ask for permission, write code. If something can be programmed, it can be deployed, and if it works better than the old thing, it will eventually replace it. Uber didn't wait for permits from transport departments, nor permission from hotels. Facebook didn't ask news agencies. All started with a piece of code, an idea, and a belief that they could do better. You might call that Silicon Valley arrogance, but I call it faith in the ability to improve the world. What makes technology special isn't its speed, but its spirit. Always assuming everything can be done better, faster, more transparently, even things thought set in stone, like laws, governments, or education systems. And this is where technology meets politics. Most major revolutions in human history began with a change in information infrastructure. Printing created the Reformation. Telegraph and telephone reshaped commerce and warfare. Television altered culture and politics. And now, the internet, along with blockchain, is quietly rewriting the order of power. A political system that doesn't need a parliament, doesn't need a bulky administrative apparatus, yet functions efficiently thanks to smart contracts and direct voting. A decentralized autonomous organization, DAO, where everyone has a stake, voting rights, and the ability to exit at any time. That's not a dream. That's DAO, a completely new organizational form emerging from lines of code. Modern nations are like outdated operating systems. They worked well in the 20th century, but now they are slow, cumbersome, and vulnerable. You can't fix an operating system by installing more plugins, you need to rewrite it from scratch. And technology allows us to do that. Look at how startups operate: fast, lean, instantaneous feedback. They can scale to millions of users in weeks. If a company can manage billions of dollars in assets with just a few dozen employees, why does a government need millions of civil servants to operate? I'm not saying all states should be replaced by software, but if we can build financial, communication, educational, and healthcare systems that work better by writing code, then we have a moral obligation to do so. You can see this already happening in finance. DeFi, decentralized finance, doesn't need central banks, doesn't need paperwork, doesn't need anyone's approval. Just an e-wallet, an internet connection, and you have access to a global financial ecosystem. The same is happening in education, a decentralized university where you can learn anywhere. Exams are transparent, degrees cannot be forged, and every evaluation is based on actual competence. Or in healthcare, an AI-supported diagnostic system where every medical record is encrypted, secure, and shared with controlled access among global doctors. Technology changes not just what we do, but how we trust. Previously, you trusted an individual, an organization, a logo. Now you trust open source code, transparent algorithms, decentralized systems that no one can manipulate. This creates a seismic shift, from trust based on people to trust based on code, from hierarchical structures to networks, from censorship to verification, from intermediaries to peer-to-peer. That means you don't need to trust a bank to send money. You don't need to trust a news agency to know the truth. You don't need to trust a university to prove your qualifications. You just need to check the blockchain. And when trust is coded, the world becomes more flexible, more resilient, and harder for manipulators to control. I know this sounds like heresy to those wedded to the old world. They'll say, without the state, everything will be chaotic. But they forget, most great innovations in history came from places no one permitted, no one managed, no one believed could succeed. Remember the story of the Wright brothers. When they built the first airplane, most leading scientists laughed at them. Prestigious journals refused to publish their results. The government didn't care. But they flew. And from a bicycle repair shop in Ohio, they launched the age of aviation. I believe we are at a similar moment. A new generation of brothers is quietly building a new world, not with wood and fabric, but with code and conviction. This is what many haven't realized. Most revolutionary changes don't start with governments or large corporations, but with small, determined, and slightly crazy groups of people. Those who dare to say, I will rebuild this entire system from scratch. And they start with lines of code, with a belief the world calls delusion. There's a common saying, ask for forgiveness, not permission. But in the world of software, it goes even further. Fork it means if you disagree with how a system operates, you don't need to destroy it. You simply copy it, modify it, and launch your own version. That's the ultimate power of technology, creating parallel worlds. And this is happening at a societal level. A group of people dissatisfied with how a city operates can fork that city by building a new one, operating on different principles with its own software and laws. They can build a community where every decision is directly voted on, every transaction is public, and every misbehavior is blocked by code. This is no longer theory. This is the reality of network states. New nations not based on geography, but on belief, ideology, and software. They have no visible borders but a much stronger cohesion than many traditional societies, and they are forming every day, silently but powerfully. You might laugh, you might say, that's science fiction. But did you ever think there would be a day when currency wouldn't need a central bank, that you could send millions of dollars across borders in minutes, uncensored, unblocked? Bitcoin did that. And interestingly, the earliest believers in Bitcoin weren't economists or politicians. They were coders, cryptographers, hackers. People who understood that in the digital world, the strongest law is source code, and a well-designed system can operate autonomously, without leaders, without trust, simply with correct logic. That's what makes technology dangerous to the old guard. It doesn't ask for permission, it cannot be bought, and it doesn't need recognition to exist. If you've ever worked in a large organization, you'll understand that most of the time isn't spent working, but complying. Procedures, reports, approvals, meetings, emails, policies. All are overlapping layers built to manage mistrust, and all can be replaced by a transparent, automated, immutable system. Think about it. Instead of hiring an entire accounting department, you use blockchain to record every transaction. Instead of meetings about budgets, you use smart contracts for automatic distribution. Instead of manual document checks, you use cryptography to verify identities. The world operates like an autonomous organization without a boss. Of course, not everyone likes this. There will be forces resisting change. Those accustomed to privileged positions, to power without transparency, they will call you dreamers, dangerous elements, misguided. But you need to understand, every major change begins with denial. Galileo was condemned, Tesla went bankrupt, the rights were ridiculed but history sided with them. And today, technology is opening an opportunity for you to be the next. You don't need to be chosen, you don't need huge capital, you just need a laptop, an internet connection, and faith in something better. The rest is code. This is when you decide, will you be swept along or will you rewrite the rules? If Thomas Edison were born in our era, would he still establish an electric company like General Electric? Or would he write open-source software so every household could control its own grid, integrated with solar energy and battery storage? The answer won't be the same for everyone. But one thing is certain. Today's technology has shifted the center of power from the factory to the user. Power is no longer in the hands of those who own giant machines, but in the hands of those who can write lines of code to create new ecosystems. In the old world, if you wanted to build a newspaper, you needed printing presses, paper warehouses, a distribution team. Today, you need a Twitter account and a sharp mind. In the old world, if you wanted to issue currency, you needed state backing. Today, you need a blockchain and a trusting community. In the old world, if you wanted to create laws, you needed political power. Today, you just need to design a smart contract attractive enough for others to voluntarily follow. That's a fundamental reversal of power. From coercion to volition, from centralized to decentralized, from physical to non-physical. And when you understand this, you'll start to see what's coming. A city without police, yet safe, because every bad deed is recorded, scored, and immediately responded to, like how Uber rates its drivers. A society without physical ID documents, where all verification information is processed through zero-knowledge proof systems, a form of cryptography that allows you to prove something is true without revealing specific details. You might think that sounds unrealistic, but that's because you're used to living in a world where complexity is handled by humans, paperwork, regulations, orders. While technology can handle complexity with logic, mechanisms, systems, databases. Think back, why do we have to repeatedly fill out personal information every time we sign up for a service? Why does a bank transaction take 3 days, while an email takes 3 seconds? Why does a lawsuit drag on for 3 years when all the data is already on a server? Because we live in a system stacked with old software, outdated procedures, and human fear. But technology is creating an escape, and in that picture, your role as a founder becomes more important than ever. Not just as a product builder, but as a creator of new societies, new rules, new trust mechanisms. You're not just creating an app, you're creating a micro-world where people behave according to the rules you write. If they stay, if they participate, if they contribute, that world becomes real. That's the power of a protocol, a neutral layer of order, uncontrolled yet capable of coordinating behavior. A good protocol is like a hidden constitutional framework, where everything can happen without anyone needing to give orders, and you can build it with code. I don't deny the barriers. Every new system is met with suspicion, every innovation with opposition. There are reasons for caution, but caution must not become an excuse for paralysis. When you see something clearly better, have the courage to step forward. Remember, many things once forbidden, once deemed dangerous, are now normal. From telescopes to vaccines, from the internet to cryptocurrency, each generation has had its mental limits that technology had to bend. And our task isn't to follow the old path, but to forge new ones with logic, with data, with faith in the future. There's a paradox that always troubles me. Why isn't the world progressing faster when we have almost every necessary tool at hand? Why are there so many intelligent people, so much money, so much technology, yet so little real action to change social structures? The answer, I realized, lies in something seemingly abstract: belief in the future. We are living in a world tired of disappointment. Younger generations grow up with the feeling that all good things have already happened, and what remains is decline. They are taught that the internet has peaked, that technology only harms society, and that everything important has already been invented. They learn cynicism as a cultural defense, and then they sit still. But that is a lie, and the worst thing you can do to a young person is to make them believe there's nothing left to build. The truth is, everything is still waiting to be created. Not just new products, but new social mechanisms, new transparent institutions, new ways of living. The future is unwritten, and with technology, you can be the one to write it. Look at history. Every generation has had those who rejected the weariness of the present, those who looked at the mess and said, "We can do better." They had no political power, no armies, they only had one tool: technology and a belief no one could take away. And then they rewrote the order. They redefined what was normal. They created new realities that made the old ones seem laughable. With the internet, you don't need a capital city to build a blockchain city. You don't need a nation-state to issue currency. With open-source software, you don't need schools to teach millions. You don't need to wait for anyone's permission, you just need to start. Consider this a call to action, but not a call to the streets. It's a call to the terminal: open your machine. Write the first line of code. Package your ideas into a product. Release it to the world. If it's good, people will use it. If it's good enough, they'll abandon the old. That's how you change society. Not with banners, but with solutions. Not with anger, but with design. Not with rhetoric, but with code. And then one day, you'll look back and realize you didn't just build an application, you built a future. Part 2, Truth. There is something even harder to define than justice, more easily distorted than language, and more susceptible to bribery than power. That is truth. For millennia, humans have strived to seek truth, but have also always used it as a tool to control each other. The king who mastered theology called it absolute truth. The pope who controlled the Bible called it divine. And today, those who control mass media declare themselves the bearers of righteousness. Benag doesn't begin this section with a theory. He starts with the sobering realization that in the modern world, truth is distorted not only by dictatorial states, but also by democratic systems. Where media is driven by clickbait, social networks are controlled by algorithms, and everything is measured by engagement rather than accuracy. To understand truth, we must categorize it. Benag divides truth into 4 types. 1. Theoretical truths asterisk. As in mathematics, once proven, it is eternal. 2 plus 2 always equals 4, anywhere in the universe. This type of truth doesn't require observation, only logic. 2. Scientific truths asterisk. Based on experiments, it is true until refuted by new evidence. Gravity pulls objects down, true, but in the quantum world, it might not be entirely true. This is a verifiable truth, but not absolute. 3. Expert truths asterisk. Something you must believe when you don't have enough data to verify it yourself. For example, you trust your doctor when they diagnose you, you trust a physicist when she explains a black hole. But this trust can be exploited. Experts are not always right, and sometimes they hide their errors behind their reputation. 4. Political truths. This is the most fragile type. Something is claimed to be true not because it is factually correct, but because it is repeated by enough powerful people. Think of weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, inflation being transitory, or the economy being stable. These are statements declared as truth but collapse upon verification. benag doesn't just describe, he directly points to the system, stating that most of what we are taught in schools, watch on TV, or read in newspapers is a blend of these types of truths, with wildly varying degrees of accuracy. And the problem is, ordinary people lack the tools to differentiate. When a newspaper headline appears, how do you know if it's an expert truth or a political truth? When a video goes viral, how do you know if it's an observed truth or staged? When a definition is changed by a fact-checking organization, how do you know who checks the fact-checker? That's why benag argues that to protect truth, we must *encode it. Let's go back to pre-internet times. If you lived in a totalitarian country where media was controlled, you had no way to share the truth, unless you printed pamphlets, spread it by word of mouth, or fled abroad. But with the internet, a single tweet can expose an oppression, a single clip can destabilize an entire government. However, this also creates a downside. When everyone can speak, how do you know who is telling the truth? benag calls this the paradox of digital free speech. When everyone has a microphone, truth doesn't disappear, but it gets so obscured by noise that it becomes almost unrecognizable. You're not silenced, you're just drowned in a sea of sound. So what's the solution? What we need isn't more voices, but decentralized verification systems. Meaning you don't need to trust a person, a newsroom, or a platform. You just need to trust the mechanism. Blockchain is an immutable system for storing truth. If information is recorded on a blockchain, you can verify it anytime, anywhere, without trusting anyone. It's a truth machine, leveraging cryptography, digital signatures, zero-knowledge proofs, and AI cross-verification. These are all tools to reclaim truth from the hands of information monopolists, so that truth no longer depends on power, but on evidence. Imagine a world where every statement can be verified by code, without intermediaries, uncorrupted by politics or emotion. Where truth isn't a matter of debate, but an engineering question. Where people don't need to trust anyone because they can *check. benag argues that the difference between a post-truth era and a post-trust era isn't the absence of truth, but the loss of the ability to verify. When every system requires you to trust the government, banks, newspapers, doctors, experts, truth becomes a luxury commodity, and trust becomes a manipulable market. In that world, blockchain is the game changer. You want to prove that someone promised to pay you. In the old world, you needed a paper contract, signatures, even a court. But with blockchain, just a smart contract. If conditions are met, the money transfers. No lawyers, no arguments, code is law. The same applies to truth. If an organization makes a statement, they can record it on the blockchain. If they lie, the system will expose the contradiction, impossible to silently fix, impossible to deny. That's why those who hold information fear blockchain, because it encodes the world's memory in an indelible way. benag recounts a bold idea. Instead of just one New York Times or one BBC, why not have millions of prediction markets where people can bet on what is true? For example, a journalist claims a politician took a bribe. Instead of just arguing, they could bet tokens that the information will be verified within the next 30 days. If true, they win. If false, they lose money and reputation. It transforms truth from a battle of ideas into a tangible system where risk and reward are tied to accuracy. Of course, this isn't perfect, but it's more transparent than letting fact-checkers funded by corporations decide for you what is right or wrong. benag also introduces a crucial concept: gradients, meaning truth isn't just black or white, but has many degrees, like the precision of GPS. Truth can be 90%, 99%, or almost absolute, and technology allows us to measure truth on a scale instead of by subjective feeling. Another example, a platform like Twitter, but where each tweet comes with a confidence score, measured by cross-verified data, expert feedback, account history, and a staking mechanism. When someone lies, they lose stake. When they speak truth, they build credibility. This is no longer fiction. It's the model of native web media that many startups are quietly implementing, where all information is fragmented, verifiable, encrypted, linked, and cannot be secretly edited. But benag goes further. He believes truth not only needs to be protected but also to compete. Look at journalism. Large news agencies once claimed neutrality, but they still lived by advertising, meaning they optimized for views, not truth. The more outraged you are, the more you click. The more panicked you are, the more you keep watching. Truth becomes a tool to sell attention. And so, modern media loses its ability to guide truth and instead becomes an emotion amplifier. benag draws a profound parallel. In science, you are rewarded for discovering truth, no matter how engaging it is. But in modern journalism, you are rewarded for making people feel, even if the truth is distorted. This turns the media into emotional performers, not guardians of truth. Pause for a moment and ask yourself, if you live in a world where every major media outlet distorts truth for views, every expert is hired by corporations with hidden agendas, and every social media platform is designed to maximize conflict instead of wisdom, then who can you still trust? benag poses a hypothesis. If you cannot trust anyone, then what will you trust? His answer: trust what can be verified asterisk. This is the post-trust mindset, not who says it, but what asterisk is verifiable by data, by code, by open systems. And that highlights the profound contradiction of our age. We live in a world of information abundance, but lack the infrastructure to verify it. We have millions of speakers, billions of articles, countless videos, but no system to filter truth from noise. benag calls this the truth disorder syndrome. The solution isn't censorship, because who will censor the censor? The solution is to code the verification infrastructure, turning truth into a service that can be programmed, scaled, and reused. Just as the internet did for information, a social network where each user can attach evidence to every statement. For example, a politician declares, "We grew 5% last quarter," and the system automatically cross-references it with data from a financial blockchain, from decentralized statistical systems, from independent data oracles. If there's no match, the information is flagged. If intentionally false, the staker is penalized. You can see how this transforms media from an art of manipulation to a field of precise engineering that is the science of truth, a field benag believes will explode in the next decade. He's not blindly optimistic. He knows there will still be fake information, fraud, and system attacks. But just as the internet once had spam, viruses, and malware, and we built layers of defense against them, we can also create a social antivirus for truth. Systems for scoring, auditing, and fact-checking. Think of it as a truth firewall, where falsehoods are incinerated by transparency. But to do that, we must shed an ancient belief that merely having good people at the top will make the system good. benag calls this the good king fallacy. He believes humans are not trustworthy in the long run. No matter who they are, no matter how good, they can be corrupted, mistaken, or simply replaced by someone worse. Therefore, instead of relying on good people, we should rely on good systems that even bad people cannot break. This is one of the major philosophical differences between tradition and technology. Tradition places faith in the ethics of leadership. Technology places faith in the design of mechanisms. Take a simple example. A company can ask employees not to steal by writing rules, holding meetings, sending emails. Or the company can design a decentralized financial system where every transaction is recorded, transparent, and immutable. The first relies on ethics, the second relies on mechanisms. Truth is the same. You can demand journalists be truthful, or you can create a system where all information is audited, where speakers are held accountable by staking, and where readers can trace the origin of information. That's the difference between a society of exhortations and a society of mechanisms. You might think all this sounds like a technological dream, idealized to the point of being detached from reality. But look around. Is the current reality worth preserving? Look at fact-checking organizations. Initially, they were born with a noble goal, to verify truth. But over time, they became dependent on funding, influenced by political views, and gradually became tools to consolidate media power rather than neutral protective barriers. When a social media platform labels information as false on an article, the question is no longer, is it true? But who is censoring? And when readers begin to lose faith in verification systems, all information, whether true or false, is treated the same, with skepticism and dismissal. benag argues that in a society that loses the ability to distinguish truth from falsehood, truth doesn't disappear, it merely fragments and becomes tribalized. Meaning, for the same event, there will be 10 different versions. Each version is tailored to the beliefs of specific groups. Truth is fragmented and then locked in echo chambers. And this is the greatest tragedy of our time. Truth becomes tribal. People don't seek truth to understand the world. They seek information to reinforce their existing worldview. Social media, by its design, promotes this. The more alike you are, the more you see each other. The more different you are, the further apart you are pushed. benag sees a way out, creating a non-tribal truth system where information is not censored by opinion but categorized by evidence, staking, and transparency. A platform like Wikipedia, but where every contribution is linked to an on-chain identity. If you add something false, you lose stake. If you add something true, you are rewarded. If you participate in verifying information, the system records your reputation. All operated by smart contracts, oracles, and audit trails. The result is an ecosystem where truth doesn't depend on people but on structure. If that sounds like science, it's because it is. benag believes that in this chaotic world, what we need isn't more reporters but more truth system engineers, people who don't write articles but design mechanisms, don't tell stories but write code, don't debate but build. He compares today's world to the era before standardized measurement systems. Each region had a different way of measuring. 1 meter in Paris wasn't the same as 1 meter in London. Commerce, architecture, transportation, everything was skewed until we agreed on a common frame of reference, the metric system. And now we need a metric system for truth. A common standard that can be checked, measured, encoded. It doesn't require everyone to agree, only that they cannot deny the evidence. This is not a promise of technology. It is the moral duty of our generation. Because if we don't rebuild the infrastructure of truth, everything else, freedom, democracy, education, healthcare, will collapse along with it. Remember, every society declines not because of poverty, but because it loses the ability to distinguish truth from falsehood, and every renaissance begins with the rediscovery of truth. We often think that justice is what keeps society standing. But benag says truth is the deepest foundation. If you cannot know what is truly happening, you cannot act correctly. If you cannot act correctly, every system, from law to markets, becomes a playground for those who know how to manipulate. Take a clear example, the financial market. If you have access to inside information that others don't, you can buy low, sell high, making billions while the majority still believes in a fair market. benag asks, if a financial market needs auditors, why doesn't information, which is even more important than money, have a similar auditing system? This is his concept of truth auditing. Truth auditing, every public statement from governments, businesses, or celebrities can be audited by an independent system. A platform where you can trace every promise a politician makes, every declaration a CEO issues, every statistic in a news article. If false, the system flags it red. If true, the system records credibility. And this can only happen if everything is stored on-chain, publicly, immutably, unable to be silently edited. A future where every politician has an on-chain profile, not just a biography, but a timeline containing every statement, every action, every vote, every promise, every change of mind, all linked by evidence. You don't have to trust him. You just need to check the record. And then, trust is no longer a vague emotion, it is a measurement. Of course, this will face fierce resistance because it makes transparency mandatory, no longer a gesture of goodwill. It deprives powerful individuals of the ability to backtrack without anyone remembering. It makes mistakes a permanent part of the record. But benag counters that transparency is not for shaming, but for upgrading societal capacity. If everyone knows they will be publicly audited, they will speak more carefully, act more responsibly, and make decisions based on logic, not emotional manipulation. He doesn't say encoded truth will eliminate lies entirely, but it will raise the asterisk price of lying, just as in a free market. It doesn't prevent you from doing bad things, but it makes bad things very expensive. From this, benag puts forth a simple but profound philosophy. A good society isn't where everyone is kind, but where the system forces you to behave kindly. An information system like blockchain, where all data is linked, every update has a history, every edit has an accountable party. Cannot be deleted, cannot be denied, cannot rewrite the past in silence. This is what technology brings, an unmanipulable memory. And that is more important than ever in an era where society's memory is being shaped by advertising companies, recommendation algorithms, and those who rewrite history whenever it no longer suits the times. A generation growing up not trusting history lessons in textbooks, but trusting an encoded timeline where every event is verified by data, witnesses, and evidence. They don't learn history through storytelling, but through querying the blockchain. They don't trust the teacher, they check asterisk. And when these children grow up in a world where truth can be instantly verified, where every statement must come with evidence, where no one is exempt from accountability just because they speak eloquently, then we will have a completely different society. benag calls it a verifiable civilization. It no longer revolves around endless TV debates, meaningless hashtag wars, or media spin by powerful forces, but is based on a common, unemotional standard. What is true? What is false? What can be proven? What is just hot air? You don't need to argue on social media. You just provide a link, an on-chain proof, and let the mechanism work. Just as programmers don't argue whether code runs, they test asterisk it. This is the model benag envisions for the future of media. Not CNN or Fox News, not print newspapers or YouTube, but a truth layer, a layer of truth beneath all content streams, verified, recorded, and tamper-proof. If you ever thought blockchain was just about money, this is when you realize blockchain is about memory and about truth. And the wonderful thing is, technology doesn't need you to convince anyone, it just needs to work. Look at Bitcoin. No massive marketing, no government endorsement, no TV news. It just needed to be right code, right principles, right logic. And over time, people came to it themselves. Not because of promises, but because they could verify the truth. Likewise, if we can build systems to store, verify, and distribute truth, independent of sentiment or power, then we can start rebuilding trust from encoded bricks. Not trusting people, not trusting brands, but trusting the system and the ability to verify. That is benag's invitation to those who still have the courage to believe that we are not powerless against deception, but merely lack the tools to fight it. And if you hold that tool in your hand, a laptop, an internet connection, a clear mind, then you can start. Start rewriting the structure of truth, start encoding collective memory, start protecting that most fragile yet most essential foundation, truth. Part 3, Building the Future asterisk. Imagine you're standing before a blank field. Nothing there, just an undefined expanse, no roads, no laws, no signs. Only you, your laptop, and an idea in your head. Most people would turn away, finding it too empty, too dangerous, too risky. But a few would stay and start writing. They wouldn't start with bricks and mortar, but with lines of code. Not with commands, but with logic. They wouldn't build a nation as people have for millennia, but they'd build a future with products. benag believes that those who build the future don't necessarily have to be presidents, kings, or generals. They can be anonymous coders, quirky founderspeople who start with an empty GitHub repository but are full of determination. Most people think that to change the world, you have to go asterisk into asterisk the system, win elections, climb the corporate ladder, seize power. benag thinks differently. Step asterisk outside the system and build a different one. That's the founder's mindset. Founders don't wait for the world to change. They rewrite the world not with slogans, but with interfaces. Not with arguments, but with products. Not by saying it asterisk should asterisk be done, but by doing asterisk it. And in this new world where technology is the infrastructure, blockchain is the truth, and the internet is the terrain, the founder is a social architect. You, as the founder of a cryptocurrency protocol, don't just design a financial system, you design the rules of the game. Who has the right to issue? Who can participate? Who can be excluded? How are disputes handled? How is long-term development ensured? If designed well, your token becomes a currency. If the ecosystem thrives, you are no longer just a coder. You become a nation builder, not in the traditional sense, but as a network state, a digital community with its own rules, goals, and identity. And this is unique. Those who join this community are not coerced, not born into it, but choose to be there. They stake their belief with resources. They accept the rules because they find them logical. They participate because they trust, not because they are forced to trust. benag compares traditional nations to geographical coercion, while network states are voluntary belief. And if you look closely, you'll see network states already emerging. Bitcoin is a currency nation where everyone believes in 21 million coins and the immutability of the blockchain. Ethereum is a contract nation where legal logic is written in solidity. A DAO community operates like an on-chain parliament. A DeFi protocol functions as a decentralized central bank. These are not metaphors, they are realities. New nations are being written in code, and each participant is not just a user, but a self-selected citizen. So the question is no longer, should I participate? But what will I build? benag offers a simple yet profound way of thinking. Every organization is a social algorithm. It's where people interact through a set of rules, whether written or implicit, transparent or opaque. A bank is an algorithm for transferring money. A school is an algorithm for granting credits and valuing knowledge. A government is an algorithm for power distribution and enforcement. And the most important thing is that every algorithm can be rewritten. When you start from scratch, like writing an application, you're not constrained by history. You can design everything from the ground up. How someone joins, how they contribute, how conflicts are resolved, how success is defined. Imagine building a global learning community where anyone can learn anything from anywhere, certified by a cryptographic proof system. You wouldn't need a board, no classroom teachers, no old-fashioned grades. You just need logic, a staking mechanism, and a method for knowledge verification. Or you could build an investment organization, a DAO, where every funding decision is publicly voted on, every investment is on-chain, and profits are distributed based on contribution, not power. Or you could build a new city, starting from an online community and then expanding into physical space with transparent policies, digitized infrastructure, and every citizen having voting rights proportional to their stake. Some might call this too idealistic. benag asks, compared to what? Compared to a banking system that occasionally collapses, compared to an administrative apparatus that operates like a 1960s typewriter, compared to an electoral system that takes weeks to count votes with no audit, no cryptographic proof. He doesn't claim the current world is too bad, he just believes we can do better. And to do that, we must start acting like builders. Dismiss the idea that you need 10 years of experience, certifications, or titles to do something. You need only one thing, an idea that can be validated by action. In the world of software, no one asks who you are before running your code, they only ask if it runs. Similarly, in the world of building the future, you don't need to wait for anyone to bestow a title. You just need to start writing, start building, start inviting others to join. If they find it logical, they will stay. If the product works, a community will form. And if the community is strong enough, you've built a nation. A nation that doesn't need a paper constitution but has smart contracts, no national flag but a token symbol, no territory but a residence of ideas. benag has a pivotal saying, like a compass for future architects. Exit traditional companies, fork outdated nations. Don't just think about leaving a company to start a startup. Think about leaving outdated national models to rewrite the principles of social organization. It's a bold yet realistic statement, because technology has given us two things previously unprecedented in history. First, the ability to organize on a large scale without the state. Second, the ability to politically migrate without geographical relocation. You live in a country with rampant inflation. Currency depreciates. Elections are suspicious. Laws are lax. In the past, to escape that, you'd have to cross borders. Now, you just need to switch to Bitcoin, communicate via Signal, organize via DAOs, store money in DeFi, learn online, work remotely. And suddenly, you've migrated systemically without leaving your room. That's a silent but profound form of exit. And benag argues that exit is the most powerful political act of the 21st century because it doesn't confront, doesn't argue, doesn't resist. It simply withdraws and builds anew. If a government bans the internet, people use VPNs. If a platform censors content, users move to decentralized platforms. If a bank freezes an account, people switch to DeFi. If an education system no longer teaches what's worth learning, people self-educate on YouTube. Each such instance is an exit. And the community of those who exit, if organized, can become a new nation, not in the sense of flags, anthems, constitutions, but in a deeper sense. A collective of people who share a set of values, a system of logic, a mechanism for rewards, and a desire for action. This is the seed of the network state. Benag envisions 3 stages for forming a network state. 1. Start with an idea, a clear philosophical declaration. We believe in X. 2. Connect online communities, people who share the belief. They stake into the system, build products, establish governance rules. 3. Expand into the physical world asterisk. Buy or lease land, live close together, work together, create their own infrastructure. And importantly, no one is forced. Everything is voluntary, everything is staking. If you believe in the rules, you join. If you don't believe, you can fork or exit. It's like open source. No one forbids you from using it, and no one holds you back, and that's precisely what makes it powerful. Think about this. How many people live in cities they didn't choose, under governments they don't trust, using services they dislike, following laws they cannot change? The network state is an escape, and the wonderful thing is you can start today. Start with a group of 100 people with a shared philosophy of life, a shared Discord server, a shared crypto wallet, all staking into the first product. From there, you create internal rules, write governance, distribute rewards, lay out a roadmap, transforming it into a living organization. That's not just a startup, it's the precursor to a new civilization. Let me tell you a story Benag often refers to as an image of a coming era, the birth of a city from the internet. A small group of 1,000 people, mostly coders, founders, crypto investors. They all believe in one philosophy: information freedom, individual sovereignty, on-chain assets, and decentralized governance. Initially, they were just an online community. They worked together, staked the same token, voted on common decisions. And then one day, they decided to live near each other, not to withdraw from the world, but to redesign the world at a micro-level. They leased a parcel of land, perhaps in Portugal, El Salvador, or anywhere a government welcomed innovation. They built infrastructure from scratch, super-fast internet, crypto wallets instead of banks. They put education online, used AI to manage energy, wrote apps to coordinate all services. They lived together not just as neighbors, but as citizens of the same design. And you know what's strange? When you step into that community, you can feel something very different. No bureaucracy, no censorship, no hidden ads-only logic, tokens, and the transparency of a system you had agreed to beforehand. That is a network state taking shape. Many still think this will fail because humans are still humans, greedy, selfish, divisive. Benag agrees, but he adds, that's precisely why we need better systems. He offers an example from programming. If you write code in an environment without version control, without tests, without automatic rollbacks, a small bug can destroy the entire system. But if you have Git, continuous integration, continuous deployment, CI/CD, and automatic rollback mechanisms, you can experiment faster, safer, make mistakes without catastrophic failure. Apply that to society. A network state is a society with rollback capabilities, where laws can be voted on and modified in real time, where errors are not disasters but learning loops, where you can fork instead of overthrow. If a part of the governance system doesn't work, you don't need a revolution. You just need to upgrade the version, like updating an app on your phone. This is an updatable form of society, and it has never existed in history. Traditional nations have constitutional amendment cycles once every 50 years through hundreds of procedures. A network state can amend its governance model in a week through a vote if the community agrees. That's the speed of software applied to society. Benag emphasizes this is not a dream of utopia. Network states will also have problems, conflicts, even failures, but the important thing is their ability to self-correct, not through violence or coups, but through logic and code. It doesn't eliminate conflict, it just rewrites how we handle conflict. A city where all civil disputes are resolved through on-chain arbitration, where each party stakes tokens and presents data, not with a louder voice. where the arbitrator isn't a person, but an on-chain voting system with an audit trail. Every decision can be looked up, debated, updated like a repo on GitHub. That is programmable law. Now you are part of that city. No one is born there. Everyone chooses to come, not for geography but for a system of values, not for residency status but for verifiable belief. You are not granted citizenship. You stake tokens, agree to the rules of the game, and begin to live as a node in a transparent, upgradable system. You don't need a license to do business. You need a smart contract approved by the community. You don't need to go to the land office for a map. You query on-chain data. You don't need a bank. You have DeFi. You don't need rigid schools. You have open learning platforms. Competence is automatically assessed by AI, and verification is done with zero-knowledge proofs. You don't need blind faith. You have systems to check. benag calls this the transformation from faith to verification, from emotional trust to structural transparency, from praying for human kindness to designing logic that compels good behavior. This is the builder's dream, a place where the system doesn't need good people to work correctly and bad people cannot break it. A society that isn't perfect but can constantly self-correct, a structure that isn't immutable but has the capacity to evolve without collapse. And this is the most special thing about benag's philosophy. Society doesn't need to be reinvented as a static, perfect painting. Society can be rewritten like software, continuously open to forking, rolling back, versioning. Imagine you live in version 3.12 of network state, a new version is about to be upgraded via community vote. You don't like it. You fork version 3.12 into version 3.12b, 50 people follow you. You create a new branch that coexists with the original. No war, no violence, just branching and building further. That is the quiet yet most powerful alternative to the old nation-state model. benag isn't saying this to overthrow the world order. He's merely pointing out that the current world order is no longer optimal, and it's time for those with capability, belief, and tools to step up and rebuild. But he also emphasizes, no one does this alone. A good coder needs a good storyteller. A good organizer needs a good interface designer. A good architect needs a good financier. Building the future is an interdisciplinary effort, like building a civilization. And that civilization begins with small, courageous communities. Remember, Bitcoin started with one person writing a paper. Ethereum started with a blog post. Airbnb started from an apartment with a few air mattresses. Everything enormous today was once peculiar yesterday. Don't be afraid of being called strange. Don't be afraid there's no market yet. Don't be afraid of the first product being crude or ugly. Fear only one thing, being too afraid to start. And once you've started, even with just a few lines of code, a small server, a scattered community, you've entered a different game, the game of building. It's not a competition of who stands out more, but who is more persistent. Not who is louder, but who is more profound. Not who runs faster for 3 months, but who still exists after 3 years in a world changing every day. Creators don't need to shout, they just need to not stop. benag believes every true founder is a pilgrim. They leave the comfort zone of the old nation, old profession, old value system, to embark on an uncharted journey where there is no map, only the stars of belief. And on that journey, they must carry 3 things. 1. Technical belief, that this thing can be built with existing tools. 2. Social belief, that others will also see the value you see. 3. Ontological belief, that you yourself are worthy of building something greater than yourself. This is not a formula, it is an invitation, because benag understands that not everyone needs to build a nation, but everyone should know that they can asterisk. You can start with a small tool to help people organize votes more effectively, an app to make budget allocation transparent, a decentralized learning system with on-chain certificates, an organization to help people access healthcare by staking instead of insurance. Each of these is a small piece of the future. And if everyone builds a piece with honesty, courage, and skill, the pieces will begin to fit together. A world where every part of society is open source, laws like code, education like an API, currency like a protocol, communication like Git logs, history like blockchain. You don't need to believe promises, you can view the code, fork it, test it. And if you're not satisfied, you don't need to complain, you just rebuild. That's the ultimate spirit of the builder. not demanding the world be fair, but demanding the right to rewrite it. That's where benag's philosophy concludes, not with a closed conclusion, but with a blank space opening up. Go on, write the next part.